All right, welcome to another episode of The Filter. Today is Monday, June 20th, and it has been a wild and woolly several days. A few days ago, I spoke with Griff Green from the DAO project, the community manager for that project, and also of Slockit. And that was in the immediate aftermath of the hack, the so-called hack of the DAO. And well, we didn't have as much information as we have now, and a lot has transpired since then. Lots of flame wars on Twitter and on social media in general. And well, there's just some analysis to be done. So I asked my good friend Andrea to join me in a little bit of Monday morning quarterbacking, so to speak, where we'll pick apart what's going on. Do a little bit of a critique of how things have been handled thus far, and get into what comes next and what are the big picture ramifications for this. You could call it a swing and a miss, but that might be an understatement. Maybe more appropriate would be a total disaster. But we will recover. I'm the eternal optimist. I think things will get better. Let's see if we can get there. Let me bring in my good buddy Andrea. Andrea, can you hear me?
Yes, Gary, I can hear you. Hello, everyone.
Joining us again from the lovely slopes of Verona. Are there slopes there? I don't even know. Yes.
Yes, just at the foot of the hills.
The only thing I really know is there's a balcony, right? There's a balcony where Juliet was one of the
Yes, it's a fake balcony. We put it there about 100 years ago for the sake of gullible American tourists that they that do not know it's fake.
Sign me up. I want to see it. I'll pay money to see that. All right. So, well, where to start? You know, I did an interview with Griff Green a couple days ago, and everything was super fresh at that time. In fact, to my knowledge, that was the first sort of public statements made by the team. Griff is the community organizer and really responsible for communications to the world at large. And
yes,
that was the world's first exposure to the team and their you know, what had happened since the hack took place, and you know, getting a general feel for what they were doing about the problem, and what the way forward was for all of the, I think, 25,000 participants in the DAO project. So it was really interesting to talk with him. You know, I didn't know much at the time. You know, I had been watching the DAO. Full disclosure, I have some DAO tokens, not very many, but a few to make it interesting, and interesting it has been. But really, when I spoke with him, you know, I was just learning about everything that transpired at that time, and some more things have come to light since I talked to him. But I'm just curious, what was your first impressions, and you know, how did you learn about this, and then what was your thought process?
Well, I learned about the DAO attack about maybe 1 hour after it started. So as soon as the community woke up, the DGX team, the DGX DAO team sent out on their Slack a message to the entire channel, which reached me via email and alerted us to the fact that there was a very that the DAO was in a very dire situation at the moment, and that ether was being drained from it. It was referencing an appeal or a call to arms by Griff Green concerning identifying those who were responsible for specific proposals to help the community take remedy as much as possible against the DAO.
So did you feel like immediately like oh, this is a disaster, or?
Yes, I had the clear feeling that I was watching the first plane hit the World Trade Center at the moment.
Wow. Well, you know, I'll remind people that are watching that you actually you had a few words of concern when we talked about the DAO the last time we got together. Did you not?
I don't want to say I told you so, but actually I would like to say I told you so. And no, I don't think that was anything especially original about what I said about the DAO the last time we spoke to each other. Many people voiced the same concerns, and I think it's very basic knowledge that or common practice that you should not put $150 million in an experiment, especially one which can be destroyed very rapidly by a sufficiently savvy person. We still don't know yet if the rest of the ether in DAO will not be drained by somebody else in the next few days. It takes about 1 week to prepare an attack on the DAO due to the timing and the specifics of how the creation of child DAOs is created. So all the people that have seen the initial attack against the DAO who might want to replicate it have 7 days time to get started with their own proposal and try to attack the DAO again. So
indeed, there has been another attack on the DAO, and I don't think it's to the tune of $50 million, at least not yet. But some people are postulating that this is just maybe testing out some exploits, and the real exploits will happen. I don't know, at some later time. But to be sure, there are people there. I mean, there's still a big bounty out there. There's still a lot of ether at stake that. Should Ethereum do nothing, then that ether could accrue to the quote-unquote attackers.
Yes, as long as nothing is done. It seems that there will be a soft fork very soon, which will freeze all the ether in all the DAOs that have a specific signature, meaning that they have been built with the same code as the DAO, which for the moment I think is only one. So we can only apply to the DAO. So as soon as the soft fork is passed, there would be no point anymore in trying to attack the DAO.
Actually, this is a very subtle point, though. There's a very subtle point to be made here, and that is that it presumes that there are no other implementations of a DAO that has the same bytecode signature, right? And they are going to freeze any DAO that has that bytecode signature. So, and actually, I believe that there are indeed other DAO implementations. I mean, they might be just people playing around, but presumably there is small amounts of ether that are tied up in DAOs that have absolutely nothing to do with the DAO, but would be affected by a soft fork.
Yeah, Andreas Antonopoulos actually did exactly that. I think he put like $10 worth of ether into a DAO built with the same framework as the DAO, and he complained about it yesterday or the day before that on the Let's Talk Bitcoin podcast, which I actually warmly recommend to anyone who's listening to this to see where things are going from now on. It's not a substantial amount though, so it's enough to say that in principle we would be freezing other people's assets just to recover the funds of a few people, but a lot of people, but still the relatively few people of only a section of the ecosystem. But I don't think it's enough to make an argument that alone does not warrant intervention. I'm not sure if the intervention is completely warranted, honestly. I did have some DAO tokens, but mostly just play money, and I would be pretty happy if the ether that was stolen was simply burnt, either through a soft fork or through some other means. From my point of view, the most important thing of all the gradation of severity of action that can be taken, and of all the gradation of rewarding the dumb investors or rewarding the hackers or rewarding nobody else, or just the community at large, minus the DAO investors. So let's give everything back to the people that invested in. Let's give everything to the hacker. Let's let the miners be corrupted by the hacker and be bribed into mining his preferred fork. I think that probably the most equitable and politically viable and also long-term non-damaging for the ecosystem would be if nobody gets rewarded and the DAO investors get a haircut of about 30% on their investments. But at the same time, the ether that was stolen cannot be reutilized by the hacker. So no reward for hacking, no reward for being stupid and putting money into something that you probably shouldn't have put money into, given the circumstances. But at the same time, we don't get a pool of a 3+ million Ether ready for staking next year to possibly to create havoc on the network.
Well,
I think
of course, the powers that be, those being Vitalik and the people that are running Ethereum and the DAO, are in a position to make some choices and are in a position to intervene on the behalf of the DAO and also make decisions that affect the people that hold Ethereum, quite frankly. I mean, this spills over into Ethereum, no doubt about it. The price of Ethereum has dropped in half since this whole thing went down. I've got something to show you. Let me just show you real quick. Let's see here. Hold on a sec. Is that it? Let's see here. Can you see my browser here?
yes.
All right. So let me go here. I posted this this little guy here today as kind of summarizing the whole thing. And this was posted on Reddit. It's not something I created, but it's this is the quandary that you can see this cartoon. Yeah, Andre?
No, actually no. I can only see the. I think the screenshot of your screen is frozen. I can only see the your face.
Let me see here. Just a moment. Here we go. This guy right here.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
The quandary that these guys have is, you know, to intervene or not to intervene. And it really has ramifications for it has ramifications for the DAO. I think we can all agree that the DAO is dead, although it's a bit of a zombie. In fact, I tentatively named this episode DAO Zombie Apocalypse because the DAO is still alive and it's still, like we just discussed, the DAO is being drained yet again, according to what seems to be yet another exploit. But the bigger question here is what to do. And I think this cartoon really epitomizes the decision that Vitalik has to make. You know, is Ethereum really building autonomous software, or will they come in? Is something like the DAO, quote, too big to fail? And we all know what that phrase invokes, and it comes from, you know, the system that Ethereum was designed to disrupt. So it is quite a paradox.
Yes, I think there are more choices other than just those two, and I think that at least there should be a third button that says reward nobody and burn the ether, and that's clearly a very different third, very viable option that they would not shake confidence in the fact that people do not get bailouts on the Ethereum network, and maintains the integrity of the system fundamentally. It's also the solution that was proposed by Rune. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's the main figure behind the Maker DAO, which I do think you're familiar with, who is but he's a highly trusted member of the community. I'm not sure which projects he was involved in previously. But he's normally a very he's not involved in the DAO at all, in the DAO, so he has no interest in recovering any tokens for himself, as far as I know. He's a very balanced voice in the ecosystem in general. I would say he's very wise. I would not use the word wise very often, but in his case, I think it's appropriate. And he's probably built the most interesting and the the most far-fetched, but not far-fetched, but the most sophisticated and at the same time non-delusional DAO that we have seen on the Ethereum ecosystem at the moment. That's his proposal, and personally, I agree with him. I don't care about the few token, the little money I'm losing in this experiment. The thing that worries me the most is that somebody would have in his hands 5% or something like that, if not more, by the time all is said and done, 5% of all the outstanding Ether.
Mm-hmm.
And yes.
Well, there's another thing that I want to show you. I know you've seen it, but it's possible that not everybody has seen it yet. And that is this paste bin refutation from the quote-unquote
yes.
attacker, right? And I think, it may have come from the attacker or it may not have. And it doesn't really matter because there are some very compelling points made in this paste bin post. Are you able to see that on your
yes.
screen there?
I can see it. I know what it is. I have seen it. I had read it a couple of days ago, and I listened to the exegesis of the text on the Let's Talk Bitcoin podcast yesterday with Andreas Antonopoulos and a couple of lawyers. It was very interestingly written. Yes.
Yeah. The gist of it. I won't read it out loud. I'll leave users or listeners to do that themselves. But the gist of it is that the contract was the code, and they said that explicitly yes. in the terms and conditions of the DAO. There was no legal recourse identified for the DAO. There was no arbitration defined. They simply said that that the code was the contract, and it should be made clear that the attacker, the quote-unquote attacker, merely executed code that was a part of this smart contract. So yes. the question is, and I'm interested where you fall on this, did the attacker do anything wrong?
I don't think he broke the law. He certainly used the contract in not according to the spirit, but according to the letter, which as far as I know is sometimes not rewarded in a court of law, but not being a lawyer, I cannot express myself too much on this merit. I have a feeling that this message comes from a troll, not from the attacker himself. Although it could be taken in the same way in which Homer did not write the Iliad and the Odyssey, but
right. Yes.
It doesn't matter whether he did or not. He might as well have. We can just take it at face value and say that the attacker wrote this. It's possibly the best possible legal defense that the attacker could mount in terms of the defense out of principle rather than out of code in this case. Something that the attacker does not mention, however, is that the consensus mechanism of the Ethereum network does not simply depend on executing the code. It depends, much as in Bitcoin, on the consensus of miners, which can be bribed, they can be bought, they're self-interested, and all blockchains rely on the principle that a large number of selfish, self-interested operators can still come to an agreeable consensus that benefits all parties involved. If there is a consensus on the part of all miners concerning whether to run or not run the hard fork or the soft fork that we come forth with, at least the code for which we come forth with. In that case, that would be what the hacker also accepted in principle when he decided to operate on the Ethereum network. It is not guaranteed that it is not guaranteed by law or by any type of agreement that the miners will have to mine whichever fork of the network is most reasonable to run. If they want to run another fork, they're free to do so, and that will become the new consensus. I think that's probably the best defense that can be made for the bailout of the DAO token holders.
But what's really interesting about and here's where you draw the distinction between Ethereum and Bitcoin. Yes, you have to have a majority of the mining hashing power agree with the steps that you'd like to take in order to take an intervention action, right? But unlike
Yes.
Bitcoin, Ethereum has a benevolent dictator in Vitalik, right? And it doesn't have a second implementation.
It does, actually.
Oh, it does. And is it
Yeah,
how does it break down as far as
percentages?
Yeah.
I think it's below 10%, and very recently, Vitalik, very recently, I think post DAO crack, Vitalik said that he hopes to see the parity implementation go to at least 10% very soon.
Okay, but you see
Probably
my point, right?
Vitalik is not a dictator. I don't think he has the power to make the miners do anything. He simply has a strong suasion power, so he can suggest
true.
that things be done.
He doesn't have absolute power, but he does have. He's a very large influence in the community, and we don't really have that in Bitcoin. If Craig Wright came forward and said, I think there should be 2 megabyte blocks, it wouldn't have the same impact as if Vitalik said we've got to do something with Ethereum.
That's true. At the same time, first of all, Vitalik did not push all of his personal weight behind the fork. He said, personally, I think that we should soft fork first and then discuss things. Secondly, if he had such an outsized influence on the community, there would not be such a strong degree of disagreement and infighting at the moment. If he really was a benevolent dictator, most people would have lined up behind him like ducklings behind Mama Duck. And this simply has not happened. I would say there's a pretty significant, probably 40–60% split against the hard fork at the moment. He's simply a very influential person, as there are influential people in all communities. He has stronger influence, but that's simply based on his reputation, not on his capacity to press buttons or press kill switches.
But again, I'll just say that Ethereum is supposed to be depending on it being extremely difficult for human beings to show up and rewrite history according to someone's sense of justice, right? Some person's sense of justice.
Yes.
That was the whole idea.
But if the miners were to rewrite history in this case, would they do it because of Vitalik's sense of justice, or because of their own innate sense of justice, or not even just their own innate sense of justice, but their own perception that of the long-term calculations of what it would mean for the Ethereum network to be compromised at such an early stage? So what if these people that have invested some money, presumably, at least they have planned for a year's worth of Ethereum hashing power until we move to proof of stake, what if they believe that by mining the original fork, the network would be devalued immediately? What if they believe that even being bribed by the attacker with 1 million Ether for running his fork, what if they believe that as soon as the bribe is paid, the network would be devalued to such an extent that nobody would want to use it anymore for whichever reason? What if they think that their own best long-term interest lies with forking away from the current from running the hard fork code?
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't think they should. I think that the burning the ether once again is the best solution overall. But I don't see Vitalik having either possessing the capacity to strongly sway the network, nor did he strongly put his weight behind his own proposal, nor did he try to pretend either directly or through the use of ambiguity to speak for the Ethereum Foundation. He made it clear that a number of figures in the Ethereum Foundation disagree with the idea of soft forking or hard forking the network. And he has been very even-handed in the situation. I think that Vitalik made the 2 big mistakes, speaking from his own point of view, in a sense, like for his own benefit. I don't think he should have gotten involved in the DAO, either by becoming a curator or by purchasing tokens, which he has done, because that configures a conflict of interest in situations like this. And he both invested initially in the DAO, And he later purchased, after the exploit was discovered, but before it was put into action, he said around 1,500 ethers worth of DAO, which is not much in the big scheme of things, and it's not much relative to the 500,000 ethers which he owns, but it's still a pretty significant amount.
So you think he should have recused himself?
Yes,
you think he should have recused himself and not done anything of this sort, because it represents a conflict?
Yes, I think it's fine if he owns the ethers, in the sense that in the same way, it's fine if Steve Jobs owns the Apple stock, because in that case, his interests are perfectly aligned with the interest of the company, and he has no interest in seeing the Apple stock going down. Same for Ether. But if at a certain point Steve Jobs also buys a stock into, I don't know, a company that is a minor competitor against Apple, and then he acts as the Apple CEO to prevent the smaller company from going bankrupt, or from losing a contract, or whatever else, that configures a pretty significant conflict of interest. The second thing that the second mistake, which I think that the Vitalik, the foundation, and the DAO in general have committed, was not declaring in advance what would happen in the event of a significant but recoverable bug in the code of the DAO. They laid out a pretty clear plan for for Ethereum for the long term, concerning the degree of a hands-on control of the blockchain that they would have. So during Frontier, when the network was getting started, very understandably and transparently, Vitalik said, we have a kill switch here at the foundation, and we can, I don't know exactly do what, but maybe fork the network, stop this fork, redirect in a command and control fashion how what will happen inside on the Ethereum blockchain, because it's so untested and so young and so insecure that if a significant bug was discovered, the entire experiment would go belly up. And they removed the kill switch as soon as Frontier ended with Homestead. And they somehow promised that they would have a less and less hands-on approach as time went on, until the coming of Metropolis or Casper, when they completely simply say we could not do anything about these things anymore. So there is a degree to which the centralized control of the networks is given up, and I don't think that is a problem in itself. Like, some people would like the Ethereum blockchain to be completely free and completely decentralized from day one. But as long as this is done transparently, I don't think that configures a significant trust issue. At the same time, now they're proposing something which I think is overall reasonable, which is to fix the network Deus Ex Machina style, through the cooperation of the miners, but they're doing so in a way that was not pre-declared should this occurrence emerge or verify itself. They never said, and in the event that the significant hack would result in the theft of a double-digit percentage of all the extant ether, then we would propose a fork on the network, and we expect the miners to cooperate in the same way in which we expect them to cooperate once we move to proof of stake. This was not in the cards. This was not something that was discussed. And possibly because they never expected a DAO to put together that much money that rapidly. But they should have done so as soon as at least as soon as they saw that there was a significant chance for the DAO to become that large. They should have put this in their timeline, in a sense.
Well, let's play a little Monday morning quarterback. What do you think could have been done differently? I mean, it does seem to me that a lot of aspects of this happened very quickly in hindsight. For example, there was no test net, right? And some people are saying after the fact that to say that the code is the contract was also a foolhardy move, something that's never been done, and also knowing that computer code can be fallible, having absolutely no recourse after the fact, or some ad hoc response instead of something that was defined in advance, like some sort of arbitration mechanism or something along those lines. So,
Yes.
could they have done a test net? Could there have been test DAO tokens? Could they have, is the social nature of this such that you can't test it really until you're testing with live ammunition? What do you think?
I'm not a programmer, so I don't know how to do security in IT systems, and the other people do, and other people have commented on this, so I rely on their interpretation of events. From what I understand, the security audit that was done on the DAO code was not sufficiently extensive. The DAO was launched only a couple of months after the code was originally released. There's enough game theory testing there's enough time for enough game theory testing for a sufficiently large community of people to see whether the code is solid or not. Even just the fact that it was discovered weeks after the crowd sale had started, I think if I remember correctly, days before it finished, that it would take 48 days to get your ether out of the DAO, to me shows that not nearly enough research was done. And probably this Lockheed guy rushed the code into the DAO just to take advantage of the market sentiment at the moment, the extraordinary DGX crowd sale that sold out in 14 hours, or this or that, or to take advantage of various other circumstances which made it so that seemed to make it so that early 2016 was the right moment to get started in this process. Mm-hmm. I think they should have seen it coming that at least $50 million would flow into the DAO, given how much money could have flowed into the DGX DAO had they kept the doors open for a few more days, and considering that the DAO, this Lockheed DAO, had received significantly more exposure than the DGX DAO, given the limit, they should have expected that a lot of money would flow into it, and that the network would be attacked by somebody at some point, and that they could not guarantee that a single guy could not find a reasonable exploit. Personally, I did not expect there to be found exploits in the DAO, in the code of the DAO, because not being a programmer myself and not understanding much about these things at a technical level, I have to rely on let's say again, the wisdom of the crowd and the public auditing of open source code. And I imagine that the significant issues with the code would have been found by now, or that I did not know exactly how many people or how read the code, audited it, and give a close look at it. Let's say that Emin Gunsirer, I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name, on June the 11th wrote a private message to one of his university buddies and said, "I think I found a way to drain the DAO entirely," or something to that effect. If they had kept the code there in limbo for a few more months before they went ahead with the crowd sale, probably that message that Emin Gunsirer sent out would have been public knowledge and would have been integrated into the programming of the DAO more rapidly and before it launched.
Well,
that could have been done differently.
This is another point that I think is really interesting about the nature of what we're talking about, right? If indeed the code is the contract, and most people are not coders, right? Presumably, yes, of those 25,000 people that bought DAO tokens, how many of them were really qualified to read the code and possibly find some exploit like this? And in the real world, we have lawyers that we can consult. I suppose in this new world of smart contracts, we could have our lawyer programmer or a programmer lawyer or some new some sort of new career option for somebody out there to consult on these things. But in this case, the DAO, was the DAO code was reviewed by the developer who created the Solidity language for Ethereum.
Yes.
So presumably there's no better expert than that. And like you,
Yes.
I was also inferring that the code was reviewed to the nth degree, and even though I'm not a coder, if there's tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into this, into the auspices of this code, surely it must have been reviewed, re-reviewed by the very smartest people in this industry. And I think we
Yes.
found that even that is not possible. And it begs the question, you know, what is the future of smart contracts? I mean, can your everyday programmer engage in this type of programming without wetting his pants at night? Because, you know, if I were to write something and there was $150 million at stake, I think it would be very hard to sleep. And I think that would be true of a large number of people that are looking to get into this this crypto
Yes,
career.
I think that this probably hails a downturn for the short, medium term for the whole idea of smart contracts. We might have popped the first hype bubble of the smart contract fad, which had to come at some point, really, because there are significant problems in how smart contracts can actually be implemented to replace or augment the real aspects of what is it called, the mid-space interactions. This is probably the first hindrance we have discovered. I would like to say anyway that I don't blame the DAO investors for putting money into it. I don't think that they're dumb, or that we are dumb since I put some money into it as well, in the sense that the type of open source peer review that we use to make sure that the code does not contain bugs, or that it's safe to run, comparable to Linux or many other open source software that many people use daily, is very similar to the peer review process that they use in science. So you don't have to be an oncologist to know that cigarettes will kill you, but that will give you cancer, but that drinking fresh water will probably not give you cancer. Nobody can read the code of, as in very few people can read the code of biology and do the research to assess whether something is carcinogenic or not. But we can rely on the fact that knowing how the process of the process of science and of peer review works, most likely the outcome of a large number of studies, the conclusions drawn by meta studies, etc., will produce the closest thing to the truth that we can have at any given moment. So we can rely on expertise in daily life without being stupid or without being told that we have not done our homework. And somebody who understands the social process of open source software writing, which is something that is open to just about anybody who tries to or cares to learn about it. And I think that who's understanding the acquisition of that knowledge behooves anyone who wants to use open source software. Should be sufficient to say I would like to put my money into this or not. There are mistakes and there are issues that can emerge, and that's why nobody, once again, should invest more than they can afford to lose, especially in something as experimental as a DAO. But I don't think that those who invested are necessarily dupes, or that they did not know what they were doing. They trusted the process, which with hindsight they should not have trusted. But I don't think there was most of them were complete imbeciles, or that they simply threw their money into a fire irrationally. Simply, they did not give money to what's his name, Josh Garza of Paycoin. They had better reasons to believe that the system was solid.
Well, but it is, you know, the whole thing is so brand new, and I've also heard critiques that even the Solidity language itself has not been properly vetted in terms of security. So even if you know, if you're a good programmer, you're a smart person, and you implemented something in Solidity code, which is a new language, to my understanding, there are still security problems. And you know, you mentioned that this could be a setback for the world of smart contracts. I I don't see how we don't take at least a year or 18 months to come out of this. I mean, you certainly won't see something like $150 million rolling into the next DAO, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And if we hadn't had this hack, you can imagine a world where things are way further along, 18 months from now. But now that this hack has happened, we could be just gaining the end user and the investment public's trust back to try something new. And we will have the same problems at that stage where the vast majority of the people doing it will be taking a leap of faith. They will be making an investment based on the reputation of the people that are behind it. They won't be reviewing the code themselves, and it's just hard to see where something of this magnitude could happen again. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because it means that people have got cold feet for this entire idea of smart contracts and arbitration by machines and not human beings.
Well, something else I mentioned in our last conversation was that, in my opinion, the fact that we had a multi-purpose vehicle for investment in any project that came along was a bad idea, in the sense that
it wasn't focused.
Capital should it reduces the focus of the investors in the project that they invest in, and more or less any project will be funded with the same degree of supervision as any other if somebody invests in a generic DAO as opposed to a project specific DAO. And I think that every DAO should be project specific, and considering that unless you're funding a mission to Mars, no project at the initial stage costs more than several $1 million to fund. Most startups, even the largest ones that today are multi-billion-dollar companies, ran on a budget of several $1 million for the first year or two. Considering that no project requires more than several $1 million to be funded at an initial stage, I don't think that any future DAO should contain more than several $1 million worth of Ether, which is why the DigX crowd sale was probably set up perfectly from this point of view. It did not contain a gigantic honeypot of Ether to be stolen. In fact, from what I know, I do not follow it very closely. I think they do not even have the governance code in place yet to prevent exactly this kind of exploits. They're still building, and eventually they will be reviewing their governance code. So that will take a lot longer for the DigX DAO to become operational. So that was the wise approach. Of course, at this point we have the problem of let's say the ticket master problem, which is that as soon as the tickets for a concert go on sale, and since the tickets are limited in number, as soon as the tickets go on sale, some guy comes in and scalps 80% of all the tickets within 50 seconds of
yes.
But that seems to be the lesser of two evils from that point of view.
Yes. Well, all cryptocurrencies, whether it's a token, any token of value, when it's new, you have the question, how do we equitably distribute this new token of value? And I think that could become a science in itself. Bitcoin happens to do it quite well, but there's plenty of tech roadkill for coins that have subsequently screwed that part of it up. I don't know if this falls into that category or not, but
yes.
When you've got $150 million flowing into a project, and also the subsequent success is based on the voting capabilities of that investing population.
Yes.
You're definitely in uncharted waters there. I mean, I know that people here locally in Bali, they were very excited about the DAO project. They were inferring a great deal about what it really was, what it really could do. They just sensed the hype, and they wanted to get involved. And then, after the crowd sale happened, then it's like, well, if these tokens are really going to realize their potential and become actually valuable, you've got some responsibility as a voter to vote
Yes.
on some project that that you think is going to bring a return on investment or be some sort of wise infrastructure play for the autonomous organization itself, and you've got
Yes.
I would say a very well, you've got the rabble, right? This is what the founding fathers called the rabble. You know, if you want to critique democracy, just go out and have a conversation with someone on the street, and it's enough to turn you off of democracy. So we never actually got that far though with this, but it's like it seems to me that there's so many unknowns, there's so many variables, there's so many things that we don't know what it takes to make these things successful, and it's more than just technology. It's the social, human side and how these things fit together with human beings and technology.
The smart thing about how the MakerDAO is organized is that token ownership is closely linked to management. So I don't know exactly how the governance process works, but or how tokens are issued or distributed, but there are locuses, loci of authority within the MakerDAO community that I think they have several tiers of tokens, or they are divided into dynasties, each one of which has a specific area of competence or responsibility. Actually, scrap that. I don't think that they have different tiers of tokens. That is certainly incorrect. But they do not issue tokens simply for crowd sales for who anyone would buy them. Mm-hmm. They make sure that the people that run the operations, that understand the code, that understand the finance behind their DAO, are the people who actually control the tokens. So that they make sure that the degree of understanding of the system of the people that participate is sufficient for them to reasonably be part of the system, and not just give them out like candy for whoever will give some money for it. And that's probably in the long run is the best way to manage this kind of operation. I think that from that point of view, the DAO was too idealistic and too ambitious from the start. There was no way that everyone could follow every project that was funded by the DAO. Probably at least 70% of all the investors in the DAO were naive investors that had no intention to vote regularly because somebody else was going to do the voting for them. And even if they wanted to, they could not follow every proposal that was submitted to it. So once again, single-purpose DAOs are probably the way to go in the future. We discussed the other time also the irrationality of voting, in a sense that unless you're especially ideological, or maybe you have a strong sense of community, or maybe you just want to delude yourself into thinking that your vote counts, it's a bad idea to vote, because the resources required to vote correctly are larger than the let's say payable outcome that you would receive by voting, by the chances of your vote counting. And that's a governance problem that you also have in the DAO. The MakerDAO makes sure that there's a perfect alignment between these interests, so that your vote counts exactly as much as your financial participation in the ecosystem. And that type of mismatch is very little in MakerDAO. It is almost complete in the DAO. And that's another problem that I think the DAO would have incurred had it be allowed to continue down its path, and had this hack not occurred. So that's probably a big lesson for the future governance mechanisms of decentralized autonomous organizations.
Well, unfortunately, us encountering those next stumbling blocks could be now pushed months, if not years, into the future, because well, we're just not going to have the critical mass around these projects that will bring up the next array of problems that we have to identify and overcome.
Well, we have two DAOs. We have the MakerDAO and we have the DGX DAO, and those two DAOs will keep on rolling forward regardless of what the general purpose, idealistic hippie vehicle for decentralized investment, decentralized investing goes. Mm-hmm. The DGX DAO and MakerDAO will go through these stumbling blocks very soon. They're also, the DGX DAO especially is pretty centralized in its decision making, in the sense that most of the critical decisions that can be taken by the DAO require a sufficiently large supermajority of tokens and to be taken, and the founders own such a significant part of the tokens themselves that it would take a near unanimity to do something that is really damaging to the DAO, and that also requires a strong degree of trust in the founders themselves. I don't think that the founders will act against the interests of the DAO, especially because they own a significant part of it, so they don't want to see it flounder. On the other hand, the Lockit guys do not directly own Lockit founders any part of the DAO, and they had a much stronger conflict of interest in enriching the private company that they had founded themselves, regardless of whether they are honest or dishonest. I'm just talking about the interest on the table right now compared to the Digix guys. So with Digix, we have a more centralized decision-making mechanism. We have fewer people that are actually voting for specific proposals. We have a strong veto power on the part of the founders, which is less idealistic, but probably better in the long run in terms of governance.
Well, it doesn't sound very autonomous. It doesn't sound very autonomous.
Yeah, that's true. But there is in the event that something really damaging was done by the Digix founders, it would be possible, for a supermajority of token holders to simply withdraw themselves from the DAO. So it's not very autonomous, but it's probably has better governance than the DAO itself. As in, almost anything has better governance than the DAO itself, since they completely failed to so decentralized. Yes. I don't know. I think that yes, it's not very decentralized, but there are degrees of centralizations, and there are degrees of experimentation with looser and looser and laxer attachment from centralized governance models. So I don't think that if Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever else comes of age tomorrow or next year or in 5 years' time, immediately we will have everybody simply moving away from brick and mortar banking into having your own digital wallets on your smartphone or your computer, where you hold all of your money with no intervention from third parties whatsoever. I think it is very likely that, for example, at the very least in the earlier stages of the digital transformations, banks will probably have 2 out of 3 keys of a multi-sig address for people's wallets, so that the people can withdraw maybe $1,000 a day from their life savings of $1 million, but they would need the 2 other keys from the bank in order to operate. So they would not release themselves immediately from centralized authorities. We would have to experiment with deeper and deeper levels of removal of third-party authority from. Sorry?
We're gonna have to take baby steps. I think we're gonna have to take baby steps. I mean, I think that's the takeaway here. We're almost out of time, and I think this is a good point to make on, that kind of sums it all up. I don't think we quite realized what an infant we were going into this DAO thing. I mean, Ethereum is only a couple years old. This concept of the distributed autonomous organization is quite new, we're only in a position to take baby steps at this time, before the really radical, really fantastic visionary things happen in this space. Well, it seems that it's going to be much more mundane, much more incremental, maybe a little less sexy, but I don't know. Banking used to not be sexy, so maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, my takeaway is that this is like a big bop on the nose. It's a big kind of humiliating in a good way experience, because the next time around we're going to be much more careful and a lot less hubris and more care. So, any final words?
Yes, I watched your interview with Griff Green the other day, and I understand that the people behind Slockit at the moment are very careful with the language they use because they're probably very scared of being sued by a large number of plaintiffs very soon for the putting out the damaged code in a sense, and these plaintiffs would not win a lawsuit against them, but somebody would certainly try to sue them for what happened, especially if the hard fork does not happen and they cannot recover the customer funds. So I understand them being very somewhat disingenuous in the way they speak because they don't want to incriminate themselves. But myself, like many other people who have spoken on Reddit and elsewhere, were very disappointed by the way in which they handled the debacle and what followed. There seemed to be no contrition, no assumption of responsibility, no sign of this is our fault and we're going to try to do our best to fix it. I think that a lot of that, certainly they also care for the people that invested in them, and so they want them to see their money back. I'm not saying that they are dishonest people, but speaking cynically, their attempts to recover the funds at the moment could simply be seen as trying to make sure they don't get sued out of existence, especially personally, perhaps, due to what just happened. And as some people have remarked, I think Paul Stork on Twitter and also Trude de Meester, I'm sorry if I mispronounce his names, but it seems to be that almost everyone that is involved in blockchain has unpronounceable names these days. As they have remarked as well, it was almost surreal to see Griff laugh around and be so half excited and almost on a slight high when you were talking together and he was discussing what happened. He seemed to me like he seemed to me to behave like the kind of douchebag friend that your friend has. You go to his house and then by mistake he drops your phone in the toilet and he says, "Oh man, don't worry, it's gonna be alright, like I'm gonna take out the hair dryer and blow on it and don't worry, it's gonna be fine," or something like that. This kind of a strange attitude of it's no big deal, we've done nothing wrong and we're gonna fix it. I would have felt a lot more respect for him and for the team had he kept a less overtly friendly and more serious composure during the interview, regardless of what he said itself.
Yeah.
I think that he also gave you the first interview that anybody in the Slockit team gave to anyone because he knew you were a friendly presence for him. You knew each other personally. You had probably hung out for a couple of months when he was staying in Bali, and probably he expected you not to be as adversarial as other people would have been doing the interview. And it's probably also the reason why nobody else has spoken live to anybody else since. Which is also understandable on that part. But overall, I don't think anybody has been happy about the way in which they manage the situation right now. And these are my final thoughts.
All right. Well, we will leave it at that. I really appreciate your opinions and your insights. I know you pay attention to this space, and it's always good to get your thoughts on what's going on. I hope we can do this again real soon. It seems like there's going to be a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Yes. It's going to be an amazing time and going forward.
This whole world is unfolding in front of our eyes. I think sometimes I wonder if I don't live inside of an adventure novel.
Yes.
Sometimes the plot twists are just as hair-raising as anything you'd find in an adventure movie or a good page turner, and I'm grateful for that. I think it makes life interesting. There's never a dull moment around here, right?
Yeah, may you live in interesting blockchain times.
Yes.
As the Chinese curse goes.
All right, Andrea, let's leave it at that. And we'll hopefully we'll see you again real soon. We'll have another talk as soon as it makes sense.
Sure.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
See you, Gary.